是一位艺术创作者，也是游戏 Manifold Garden 的制作人。那 Manifold Garden 以壮阔的视觉风格著名，它还被游戏媒体称作是难以置信的漂亮。那我们今天就邀请 Willem 特别深入带大家了解 Manifold Garden 的美术创作过程。让我们用热烈掌声欢迎 Willem。
Hello， 各位好，我讲这个时候会用英文讲，因为我中文其实不是很好，但是讲完之后，假如你有问题的话，你就可以来问我。Okay, so the talk is the evolution of an art style, and I'll be talking about kind of how the art style of this game, Manifold Garden, came to be what it is, and the story of its development, basically. So my name is Chyr. Prior to working on this game, I studied physics, that's my background, and I had spent a summer working at the National Institute of Nuclear Physics in Italy. And then after that, I actually worked as an installation artist with balloons. So I did this for about 4 years, and it was mostly for like science centers and art galleries. And I ran into a problem in the art world where I was the balloon guy, and I couldn't shake that off. It was sort of a double-edged sword, because a lot of people knew about the game. A lot of people knew about the work, but I just had to keep making balloons. But what I'm here to talk about is my game Manifold Garden, and just kind of a brief intro. This is what the game looks like now. And so what is it? It's a first-person exploration puzzle game with impossible geometry, unusual physics, and mind-bending architecture. So the game is basically a metaphor for the last 400 years of physics, because you start off learning gravity, like with Newton, and then you get to Einstein and you're thinking about the shape of the universe. So I'm going to play a quick video, just introducing. So in the game, you have the ability to change gravity. Like here we can switch into the yellow gravity, use the yellow box as a shelf, and then you can pick up the red box and place it on the shelf. So then what you want to do is go to the top of the platform, rotate back into red, and then you can pick up the box. So the game starts off with a series of small puzzles inside rooms to teach the player how to navigate. It's completely wordless at the beginning. So eventually we find out that the boxes are actually fruit that grow on trees, and you can use those to open up doors. And this is the part where the game sort of opens up. So you can see we've got this room, the laser, and this box. And when we fall off, the game doesn't fade to black or kill the player. Instead, the world actually wraps around on itself, so you simply land back exactly where you fell off from. So yeah, and you can keep doing this as many times as you like. And now this is something interesting, which is that you can actually pick up the box and drop it off the ledge, and the physics is consistent. So you can actually see that box come down from above. And it'll actually come down again. Alright, so that's the beginning of the game, and then later on I just want to show you kind of how the architecture gets more complex. Because this is like 5-6 hours into the game. This is what it looks like. So you can see we kind of start building up on the game, and this is, then the architecture becomes more and more complex. Let me skip ahead. All right. So I'm going to talk about how, this talk is about how I got to that art style. Okay, so. All right, so the initial idea for the game is from this movie, Inception. So you might remember the scene where they fold Paris in half and they start walking up the wall. So I was thinking, okay, if Leonardo DiCaprio were to drop his wallet, which direction would it fall in, right? Does it fall in the direction of the new gravity he's on, the blue arrow, or does it fall in the direction of the old gravity? And what if I'm standing on the old surface and I grab his wallet? Like, which way does it fall? So this is based on this print by M.C. Escher called Relativity. So in the beginning, like I said before, I was struggling with these balloon installations. And I was looking for another medium, and a friend told me about this movie, Indie Game the Movie. I didn't play video games before, but I was kind of watching some of this talk, the way Jonathan Blow talked about his work. And then a friend sent me, the same friend sent me this game by Telltale called The Graveyard and Flower. And so all that stuff kind of made me realize that games was very different than what I was used to as a kid. And they also seemed a lot smaller, so maybe something that I could do. So I downloaded Steam, and I had this game in my library because basically a year ago when Portal 2 came out, Valve gave out Portal 1 for free, and I signed up, but I never played it. And I asked my friends, like, where do I buy PC games? And they said Steam, so I downloaded it, and I had Portal. So this is what the game originally looked like. I wrote it in, this was November 2012. So at the very bottom, I'm gonna have the date, so you can see how the game's evolved over time. So you can see at this point, it was very much a Portal clone, like with very bad textures, just like a bad sci-fi look. This is kind of different what it looked like. And at the beginning, it was sort of introduced with a lot of text. By the way, it turns out nobody reads this stuff when they're playing the game. And this was also a mechanic that was based on moving blocks, based on this game called Rush Hour. So it's not a board game, but it comes with these little pieces. And the idea is you want to slide the cards around until you get the red one out. And I'm going to show another video. That shows the earliest gameplay. So this is from back in 2012. So the difference here is that you rotate the room. So you would hold down the mouse and then drag up, and then the room would rotate and you'd fall into the correct orientation. So you can see a lot of the puzzles were based on kind of navigating these kind of really tricky spaces, and I had electricity that would kill you, and then there was this door that you'd get to. So I also had spikes that would kill the player. But, so this is what I wanted to show. So this was the 3D version where you had to move these blocks around and then get the red one to touch the pad at the end. And this led to one really interesting puzzle, which was this one, because I had these boxes that you would put on a button. And what was interesting about this is once you put the box on the button, you can no longer rotate the room. So you actually had to use the giant Rush Hour pieces to create a bridge. But yeah, you can see at this early point, the art direction is sort of all over the place. go back to the talk. All right, so the change was instead of having the room rotate, now I had the player rotate. So I had, like, you see in this case, the blue box would fall in the direction of the blue floor, the red box in the red floor, the yellow box towards the yellow floor, and so on. And when the player is introduced, only one gravity is active. So in this case, only the blue is active, and all the other colors are frozen. When the player changes gravity, the yellow is active, red is active now, and green is active, and so on. So I rewrote the game after 4 months, because that first prototype didn't work. And instead of focusing on the look of it, I decided I would focus only on the mechanics. So you can see here, the other colors are frozen, and only blue is active. Here's red's the one active, and the other ones are frozen. And you notice that there's actually a lot of physics. So you stack blocks and they actually would fall. And there was also, like, you could push a sphere down a slope and so on. But what I found though was that the physics was not a lot of fun to work with. Like, you'd be stacking boxes and they would tip over, and it was just really frustrating. So one of the first things I did was get rid of that, so everything was along a grid. And then when I showed it to a bunch of people, they said, so you can change gravity, but I didn't have any of the surfaces colored, and they wanted having the surface colored so that they could see which way they were going. And I ended up coloring all the surfaces, but they ended up looking too much, so I realized the only part that needed to get colored is the floor. So now the floor is being colored, and it indicates which gravity you're in. Again, we also switched from using buttons to these switches on the floor, because with the buttons, you can put any color box on it, and this one, you actually have that same color. So you're struggling to get more sophisticated with the puzzles, like there is the line from the switch leading to the door. So this is a year into development, about like half a year into development. So, you know, the work is heavily inspired by M.C. Escher's drawings, and if you look at his stuff, there's a lot of complexity, a lot of lines. And one of the things I tried to do was to capture that complexity really early on. So you can see this is an attempt at this space. And all of this was still indoor spaces, but I'll come back to this architecture later, but these were the earliest attempts at creating an Escher-like complexity with the game, but they actually didn't work out very well. This is interesting because this is a level where I wanted to make it feel like it was an endless pit. So I just had you falling down here for about 10 minutes. It didn't work well, but again, it was sort of these early attempts at various ideas. So this was very typical of the game at this stage. Giant puzzle, a bunch of lines leading to a door, button, and electricity that can kill the player. Around the summer of 2013, I started using this tool, ProBuilder, and you'll notice that the grids at the level start to become a lot more organized. This was also when I started adding colors to the boxes. So the problem with this is that right now, orange is the active one and blue is the inactive box, but the design of it didn't really indicate that. So at this point, I also started experimenting with having the player go outside, and mostly this was because this level needed that not having space around the player. You can see these early attempts at that, as well as kind of starting to push towards architecture. So one of the, a lot of the buildings in the game are inspired by the works of Tadao Ando, who's a Japanese architect. So you can see this building is actually based on his piece called the 4x4 House. In early attempts at larger architecture pieces, and now focusing on outdoor areas. So the background color was initially black. And I just chosen that for no particular reason. I tried red. And also started pushing towards like more atmospheric types of lighting. These were apartment buildings and early trees in the game. However, I ended up changing the background to white because it looked weird having the light coming in and this like bright patch, but a black background. So at some point in early 2014, I started kind of experimenting with different edge detection styles or post-processing styles. So you can see this one, this is just ambient occlusion with a grid pattern. And now here we're starting to play around with edge detection. This is the first attempt at it. And then edge detection with no grid. This was just for fun to see what that would look like. And then we also started experimenting with water. At the time, the game was still taking a lot of inspiration from Myst, so you could use water to power large machinery. You can see that this is kind of, we have the gear stuff, which is basically taken from this image in Myst. So, one thing that was interesting here was I added the light to provide shadows so that players can see where bosses are going to fall. And players would ask, where is the light coming from? So I added a window to explain the source of the light. And as a result of the window, players were able to see the outside areas. So to focus on the outside areas, I took a lot of inspiration from brutalist architecture. Here are a few images from that. And I started putting the player outside because everybody wanted to go out there. So these are the outside areas at first. And this is, I sort of at this point, I thought the game looked pretty good. And I took the game to GDC 2014 and I got some feedback from others. And everybody told me that the game I needed to work on the art style. And I'll show you the very first press quote I received. If I can find it here, is this. So this is the very first, so the game was called Relativity at the time, and this is Chris Priestman from Indie Static. So this is the first press I ever got. So it said, despite Relativity looking like a bunch of other first-person puzzle games, due to its focus on color cubes, square rooms, and predominantly gray-white palette, it's interesting enough to garner my attention. And this was basically the feedback that I got from GDC, that the game looked very generic, it looked like a Portal clone, and I needed to work on the art. So after GDC, I kind of took a week to research different art styles, and architecture had become a really important part of the game. So I started looking at old architecture renderings, and this was an image I found that this guy had written this post-processing shader to look like old architecture renderings. So what I did was I colored one of the surfaces to be blue to see what it would look like, and I thought this looked very interesting. So this was my attempt at that, and I wasn't really convinced based on the interior rooms. And I couldn't do so I also did try adding the noise pattern, but it got too much in real time because the frame is drawn, it's redrawn every frame, so you end up getting like too much static. So this only works for a still image. So for real time, it worked better with just having kind of clean lines. But the outside areas really kind of convinced me that this style could work. So I took this to GDC, and when you're outside at this stage, I hadn't introduced the world wrapping mechanic. So you'd fall off and the screen would fade to black. and then you would respawn the player. And this one feedback I got was that the sky is too blank. And so there were two games that factored into this decision. So this is Bioshock Infinite, and if you play that game, it's a beautiful game, but they have invisible colliders everywhere. Like, you really can't explore. You want to go somewhere, and there's just something holding you back. And that was incredibly frustrating for me as a player, whereas in Skyrim, you were able to actually go to a lot of places that you can see in the distance. And that, for me, was very magical. So what I wanted was that everything you see in the game, you can get to. So this was an attempt at Skybox kind of filling in the sky, which looked terrible. But then it occurred to me, and so this conversation actually came about with, through a conversation with Alexander Bruce, the creator of Antechamber, which has a similar mechanic in the end, but so he was the one that started talking about the sky being too blank being a problem. And I realized that with world mapping, I can have stuff in the distance that you can get to without creating additional content. So this is the first image with that effect implemented. And it took a while to figure out the correct distance. So this is too few, this is too much. When this was added, it was a little bit too distracting. But then this was kind of when I found that the effect was just right. And this is a GIF of the first time this was implemented. So you can see this is actually the distance between the instances were still quite large. So that started to become a focus and kind of focusing on more levels like that. So now I get to this comment, which is the game looks like Antechamber, and I'm not sure if this is something that should bother me, but it has, and a lot of my decisions in the art style have been motivated by this comparison. So I'll show you a few pictures from Antechamber. So it's pretty easy to see why people draw comparisons. They're both minimalist with edge detection and kind of like a clean color palette. So for me, for a long time, it was like, how do I differentiate the game from Antechamber? And someone showed me this, so this is architect Libby's Woods, and someone showed me this image, and what I realized was that the density of the lines really made a difference. So this is one experiment in that, so I just put a bunch of boxes and had a bunch of, had it duplicated. And this already started to look different from Antechamber, and this as well. So one thing I did was I did these experiments where instead of focusing on puzzles or actual architecture, I would just put a bunch of objects and duplicate them and see what I got as a result. And then also more focus on architecture. So this is American architect Frank Lloyd Wright, and you can see the windows in the game are totally taken from his work. So there were two things. So there were like a few things I started to decide. If I had more focus on architecture, more focus on outdoor areas, since all of Antechamber takes place inside, density of lines, and then I was trying to get kind of slightly something different. And I also started adding shadows, because that's one thing that Antechamber didn't have. And then, so during this was 2014, and I went around to about 14 events. And every time I went to a show, I would show the game to someone and ask what I can do to make the game look different. So we got outdoor areas, architecture, having a lot of dense lines, shadows. And then this is the best piece of advice I got, which is to use screen space gradient from Russell Honor. And he talked about this game, Vane, which looked really good. But if you pay attention to it, it's basically blue to red, top down. Right, and all their images just blue to red. And I started adding that, and all of a sudden the game started to feel very different. So these are some experiments that did not work out, but kind of showed me how this can really take the game in a different direction. Another example that is a huge influence is this game, Blame. So, I'm sorry, it's not a game, it's a manga. But one of the really great things about this is he really shows how you can go from one area. So there's a lot of these very big drawings of architecture, and you can go, what you see in one area, eventually, in the distance, eventually you end up there. And this game, Say, actually captures that. So this game has a lot of architectural influences from brutalism, and this is something I try to capture in my own work as well. And so you can see that eventually taking the pieces from Say, the emphasis on architecture, combining all of that together, and having outdoor areas started to push the game in a new direction. And if we go back several slides to Antechamber, I think that style starts to become more different. So I think for me, it's like if Antechamber didn't exist, I think the art style would have settled something like this. But for me, wanting to differentiate the game has kind of caused me to explore a lot of these new areas, focusing on the architecture and the outside spaces a lot more. Go back to that. So now, this is kind of what the game looks like now. So you can see, so I'll kind of break down this image, and you'll see that there are the windows that make up this area. They're taken from Frank Lloyd Wright. Kind of the centerpiece is taken from just brutalist architecture. And the bonus with the Frank Lloyd Wright windows is that they add a lot of interesting shadows in the room. This is the same scene again, but with the shadows adding a lot of atmosphere to the room. This is another level that I really like, which is based on a single pattern, this H, and then having a messy building in the middle, so that the level ends up being a combination of chaos and order. And again, it's experienced from a different angle. And finally, so one of the things that I started to do later was making the distance between instances a lot closer so that you cannot see where one ends and the other begins. So in this case, this is a set of stairs that just continue on forever. And you can keep going down or keep going up. And the puzzle here is how do you get from one side to the other. And what I really like about this level is that because you can't see the distance between the instances, it ends up, feel like you can experience infinity in this world. And again, this is based on a conceptual piece by Japanese architect Naratari Suzaki. So another thing I've found that's been really great about this game as a platform is that I've been able to recreate a lot of architecture that wasn't built in the real world, but now works in the game. So just as a summary, we've gone from this Portal clone to, I guess, still pretty Portal generic, to finally what it is now. So. Anyway, that's kind of the evolution of this art style, and that's my information. But we'll take some time for questions here.
那我现在是那个提问时间，那请问大家有没有什么问题想要提问的？
thank you so much for the talk. I was just curious about your background. You said that you were originally a physics major, or
Yeah.
Could you elaborate a little bit more on that? Because it seems like you're a one-person team, and for you to go from interior design artist with balloons, background in physics, to game design architecture, could you go into that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. So I studied physics in school, I was in school. I was actually working. I had gotten a job at a circus doing balloon animals on the side, and that was just something for fun. And then I ended up kind of doing the installation work as an offshoot of that. Like I did these pieces in school, and they got noticed by the school, posted them on their website, and the Museum of Science Industry saw that. So they commissioned some work, so I did that summer. And then from there, I kind of pursued that for about 4 years. The first 3 years of that was just kind of part-time. And during that time, I worked briefly in advertising. So I got to learn some design there. After advertising, I actually worked at a studio in Toronto that made interactive science exhibits. So it was like, while I was pursuing the artwork with the balloons, I had worked in marketing and then worked in museum exhibit design, so I had picked up programming and design there. And when I started working on the game, it just seemed like it was a combination of, at least at the time I thought, okay, I know how to program, I can do a bit of design, I've done a bit of 3D modeling, and a game, I think, is just those 3 things together. So that's kind of how I transitioned into that. But at the time, I thought the game would take 3 months. And then it ended up taking 3.5 years. Yeah. I think that answers the question?
Yeah. Thank you.
谢谢。那大家还有没有什么想要提问的？可以趁这个时间就是一次的问清楚。那如果没有的话，那我们今天的演讲就到这边结束。那谢谢大家，让我们再用热烈的掌声，谢谢威廉。向大家就是我们明天还会有一整天活动，所以不要忘了带识别证。我们出入会场都需要携带识别证。那外面有很多赞助商摊位，还有独立开发者游戏的摊位，所以如果你今天还没有逛的话，明天也可以一起的逛清楚。谢谢。